Hey YouTube, what is up? If you play Yu-Gi-Oh, you know there's a new ban list imminent and a lot of people are sweating it, and I understand why. It can make your decks irrelevant meta-wise, it can make them worthless, but I think the best way to predict what's going to happen to the TCG is to look at what happens to the OCG and then use that as a base to hypothesize what's going to happen to the TCG. Now, two things to keep in mind is that the OCG is basically 6 months ahead of us. They get whatever we have 6 months before us, so they're basically 6 months ahead of us meta-wise. So we're not going to get the exact same ban list, and there's, reasons why the OCG ban list is the way it is, and the fact that we're 6 months behind kind of makes it relevant, so we're not going to get hit as much, and I'm going to explain why. And that's because there's a new Yu-Gi-Oh movie coming out in Japan soon, and Japan already has Blue Eye support, and I think they just got Dark Magician support. If not, they're gonna get it really soon. And the new Dark Magician and Blue Eye support is basically gonna be the decks that are played in the movie by Kaiba and Yugi. So it's a attempt to make the movie come out and have the current meta decks at the same time the movie is out be the cards from the movie, which is the Blue Eye's new stuff and the Dark Magician new stuff. I understand why they're doing it. I don't really agree with it, but you have to keep that in mind when you see this ban list. And just to quickly explain what I mean, if you look at the ban list, you're gonna see that Dragon Shrine and Gold Sarcophagus are now unlimited, which is Blue Eyes, and I guess Dark Magician support. Gold Sarcophagus could help out other decks as well though, and Super Rejuvenation is now newly semi-limited. So there's some stuff that's obviously, I mean, they're not really being too sneaky with it, but it's pretty transparent that they're making Blue Eyes powerful and they're making Dark Magician powerful to have them be relevant at the same time as they are having the movie come out. Anyway, let's take a look at the OCG list, see the cards that are forbidden and now newly limited, and just discuss, how that's going to affect the TCG and what changes I think are going to happen to the TCG based on that. First off, Monkey Board is forbidden, and so is Life Equalizer. Life Equalizer, I do think it's going to happen in the TCG. I don't think Monkey Board's going to get banned. Now, the reason Life Equalizer is banned is because it just leads to Magical Explosion OTKs, which actually took me out of my regionals pretty much. That was the first round I played, and if I didn't have one extra loss, I would have gotten my Nationals invite, I think, which kind of sucks, but I could see why Life Equalizer is going to get hit. It's because it's basically a OTK deck, and those can sometimes be cancerous to the meta and the card game in general because it just makes your opponent sit there as you flip through your deck. Kind of sucks, but I understand why it's getting banned. Perform Pal Monkey Board, I don't think it's going to get forbidden. We don't have the Dark Magician support coming until August, and we're just about to get Blue Eyes. So I don't think they're going to neuter Draco Pals that much by hitting Monkey Board. They're probably going to hit other cards. Anyway, newly limited cards that I think is really important to see get hit is Dante and Scarm. Those are newly limited, and those cards are very important because we just got Beatrice in the TCG. Now, I think what's going to happen is something similar to what happened with Cyber Dragon Infinity. Once Cyber Dragon Infinity came out, people, they let people play with it for like a couple weeks, and then they dropped that emergency ban list, which banned Ptolemaeus. I think that's going to be what happens to Dante. Instead of them hitting Beatrice, they're going to hit the card that lets you get to it, which is Dante. I think Dante will be semi-limited in the TCG, not limited completely, but I do think it's going to get semi-limited. I could see Scarm being limited in the TCG though, just because it's really consistent. It allows you, once it goes to the graveyard, basically add to hand in the end phase. It's a lot of consistency, from Scarm itself. It allows you to set up next turn plays, so I could see why it's at 1, but I'm not completely sure, if Dante is going to be limited or semi-limited, but I'm leaning more towards semi-limited. But BA does have to get hit because it's way too strong at this point. Next cards that are newly limited that I think is really important to see is Ignister Prominence, Perform Pal Pendulum Sorcerer, Draco Faceoff, and Wavering Eyes. That's basically all of what? All of Draco Pals. If you don't have those cards in Draco Pals, you're kind of screwed. Ignister Prominence leads you to your, basically first turn play where you set up board. If you only have one, it's going to be a lot harder to recover from having your board wiped. So if you have 3, you could be a little bit more careless with your Ignister Prominences, because if you get 1 killed, you could just bring out 2 more. But if you only have 1, and that's usually your first turn play, you're going to have to be a little more careful of the Dark Holes and Raigekis that people tend to main deck now because of how prominent Draco Pals is and how easily they set up board. Perform Pal Pendulum Sorcerer, I don't think is going to get hit in the TCG yet. It's a possibility, but I do think Ignister Prominence is probably going to get limited to 1. The Draco part of the Draco Pals is, I think, what they're going to touch. That's basically my opinion. Draco Faceoff, probably going to get semi-limited. Ignister Prominence, I'm also predicting is going to be limited. Wavering Eyes, I don't know. Really, that's a card I can't see being limited, because if you get rid of Draco Faceoff and Wavering Eyes, it's going to really kill the Draco Pals deck, because that's your consistency. Those cards really do help. So does Perform Pal Pendulum Sorcerer, but I don't think they're going to touch that. I think they're probably going to hit Draco Face Off but not touch Wavering Eyes, that's going to be the compromise. Because if they hit Wavering Eyes and Draco Face Off and Pendulum Sorcerer, it would kill the deck. It would make it way too inconsistent. So for now, I think what they're going to do is semi-limit some of these cards, except for Ignis of Prominence. I really think that's going to be limited to 1. But I think they're probably going to either semi-limit Pendulum Sorcerer or not touch it, leave Wavering Eyes and hit Draco Face Off, just as a way to kind of like nudge the deck slowly out of the meta, so they don't have to do a huge ban list all at once. Instead, do this ban list basically in halves. Do one half now and then one half after Dark Magician comes out, and then make Dark Magician and Blue Eyes relevant in the TCG. That's what I think is going to happen. Mass Change Second also getting hit, relevant because Mass Change Second is I guess a tech in the BA deck, because you can basically make Dark Law and lock your opponent out once you already set up board, and then if they get rid of your Dark Law, you can continue your plays by sending cards to your graveyard. But you just wait and you sit on basically Dark Law, and if your opponent's like Monarchs or something like that and they can't summon and they need to deck thin, they're basically screwed if they have to go up against a Dark Law and deck thin at the same time, because all the cards that go to the graveyard get banished, which kind of screws over Monarchs. Anyway, that's getting hit. I could see that being limited in the TCG just because not many people run it. So limiting a card that not many people play doesn't really, cause much of an uproar. So they're probably limited now preemptively for later. Emergency Teleport, Domain, Pantheism. Those 3 cards also newly limited. This really kills me, but I really do think Domain and Pantheism are going to get hit. And that's just my opinion, but Domain and Pantheism make Monarchs too good. 1 card to lock your opponent out of their extra deck is pretty broken, and Pantheism is way too broken as a draw card. You basically get 3 cards off of every one that goes to their graveyard, unless you're doing multiple in 1 turn, which is possible, because its draw effect is more than once per turn. So Pantheism, you can, use Pantheism, send the trap to the graveyard. If you have a Monarch in hand, banish Pantheism, do 3 Tenacity, add another Pantheism, ditch another Monarch spell or trap, and then draw 2 more. So you basically just drew 4 cards. It's too broken, and if they're hitting the engine that allows you to do FTKs and OTKs and stuff like that, I could see Pantheism being limited, because that's part of that engine now, basically. I mean, it's part of Monarchs too, but a lot of people are using it just as a deck thin engine, and I could see why, because Monarchs are too consistent and too good, I think, at this point. Monarch is really too good for a structure deck, in my opinion. So anyway, Emergency Teleport and Reasoning also newly limited in the OCG. I do think Emergency Teleport is going to get limited. I don't think Reasoning is, though. Reasoning, I think, is going to be semi-limited or left alone completely, because it's not used in too many decks, to be honest with you. It's used in Cosmo, and that's why I think they're hitting E-Telly and Reasoning, is to kind of get rid of Cosmo in the OCG. But in the TCG, I can see why they get rid of E-Telly. It adds too much consistency. They get hit the E-Telly because Cosmo is getting more support, so they're going to get rid of E-Telly to give you space to run the new Cosmo support that's coming out. Reasoning, I don't think it's going to get touched, because most decks that use it, I mean, Cosmo uses it, yeah, but the only other decks I can think of that use it are Super Quantums, like straight Super Quantums, and Infernoids. So I don't think they're really going to touch Reasoning. A thing to point out really quick is that Dante, Scarm, Ignis of Prominence, Draco Face Off, Mass Change Second, E-Telly, and Reasoning all got gold rare reprints. And when stuff gets gold rare reprints, it tends to get hit. A prime example of that is Lavolval Chain. Lavolval Chain, once it got its gold rare reprint, it was banned. Pretty soon after that, I think a week or 2. So these cards are getting reprinted. I do think that they have a high possibility of being hit in the TCG, but I don't think they're going to get hit as severely, because we are 6 months behind the OCG format-wise. So I think we're going to see some stuff be touched, but I don't think too much is going to get hit. I think it's going to be a half-step increment. That's the best way to put it. They're going to do half the ban list now, and then half the ban list probably when Dark Magician comes out, like right after Dark Magician releases. I think that's when we're going to see the other half of this ban list basically wipe these other meta decks out, because then they want Blue Eyes and Dark Magician to be relevant. But that's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any comments or predictions of cards you think are going to be banned, don't forget to let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, you can follow me on Twitter at Schwabs, or you can like my Facebook page. The links to those in the description as well. That's it for this video, guys. If you really liked it, you can click subscribe. It's free, it's fun, and I'll see you guys in the next one.